What's up everyone, Patrick here, welcome back. Moving on to the next question. So we're told that each set of two lines here is equivalent, and given that information we have to find the m value. So what that means is that these two lines here are the same, these two lines are the same, these two lines are the same. And notice that in each set there's an m value that is unknown, and we basically have to solve for that m value so that they're going to be equivalent. So what you want to do with this kind of question is make sure that you put the lines in the same format. And what I do is I put all of the lines in y equals mx plus b format, and then from there work in solving for that m value. So let me show you with this first set. We got y equals 4x minus 3, and then we have 2y equals mx minus 6. So notice that this one, it's already in mx plus b form, right? So the m value is 4, and then the b value is negative 3. However, this one here, it's not in mx plus b form. So we got to isolate for that y. The way we would do that, we would divide everything by 2 because we have this 2y here, so these would cancel out. And then we'd end up with y equaling m over 2x minus 6 over 2 is 3. Okay, and so this makes sense because notice that the m value we're going to solve for, it's going to be part of the slope. And by the way, this m value over here, I should have maybe used a different letter than m. It's different than the general m value, y equals mx plus b. Okay, in this particular case, that whole bracket there is the slope. And then this whole bracket here is the slope. Okay, so you could use any variable there that you want. You could use maybe a or n, right? So just don't get confused that this m value is the same as this general m value for the slope of a line. But this makes sense because notice that the b values are the same, right? There's no constants to solve there. So that makes sense that these should be the same. It's basically, we have to solve for the m value that's going to make the slopes the same. And so what you can do is you can just say, when does m over 2 equal 4, right? These two slopes have to be the same. And so from here to solve this, you can put the 4 over 1, then you could cross multiply. 1 times m is m, and then 2 times 4 is 8. And so that is the answer to this first scenario. So an m value of 8 would make both lines equivalent. You could test it. You could take the 8, put it here. 8 divided by 2 would give us 4, and we'd have y equals 4x minus 3, which is the same as that line right there. Okay, now moving on to number 2, we got y equals mx plus 14 all over 2, and then we have 10x minus 3y plus 21 is equal to 0. Now you got to be careful. Sometimes students get confused with this format. Just in general, let me, before we get into solving the m value, just want to talk about this format. Let's say you got something like 3x minus 5 over 4, for example. This here, even though it doesn't look like it, it's actually a line. Okay, whenever you have like an mx plus b form all over a value, all over a number, that's actually a line, because if you think about it, you could split up the fraction like that. Okay, so this is the same as this, and now notice the m value is 3 over 4, the b value is negative 5 over 4. So that's one thing I wanted to just point out. A lot of times you'll see stuff like this. These are actually lines, and if you want to convert it to y equals mx plus b form, so it's in a format you're more familiar with, you can just do that. You could split the fractions up. Sometimes the fractions will simplify. You're actually going to see that happens here. But in this case, they didn't simplify. So what I'm going to do here with this line is the exact same thing I just mentioned. So we'll have, splitting this fraction up, m over 2x plus 14 over 2. Right? This 2 went over this, 2 went over that, and then notice the 14 over 2. That actually simplifies to 7. So we got y equals the slope mx plus the b value, 7. right? So the slope in this case is m over 2. It's actually the same as it was over there. Now, this line, it is in standard form, so we got to put it in that same y equals mx plus b form. How do we do that? Well, we isolate for the y. Because we have a negative 3y, I'm actually going to bring it over. So this would be the same as 10x plus 21 is equal to positive 3y. Again, you don't have to bring it over. You could keep it here, bring these over, but then you're going to divide everything by negative. You got to make sure you're switching the signs. So I brought it over where it's going to be positive. Now this equaling that, we can also write it as this equaling that, right? So when you have like 1 plus 2 is equal to 3, well, you could rewrite that as 3 equals 2 plus 1 as well. It doesn't matter which sides we're writing it on. So same thing over here. I'm not bringing this over and then bringing these over. I'm just kind of interchanging both of them simultaneously. Okay, so from here, just divide everything by 3, right? We got to get the y by itself to be in y equals mx plus b form. What do we get? We get y equaling 10 over 3x plus 21 over 3, which is 7. Again, that makes sense because the b values are the same. And so from here, this slope and this slope have to be the same, right? Both of these lines are equivalent, as mentioned. So we just figure out when does m over 2 equal 10 over 3. And then just like we did up there, we could cross multiply. So 3 times m is 3m. And then we'll have 10 times 2, which is 20. And then we'll have m equaling 20 over 3. So that is the m value that would make both of these lines equivalent, right? And then if you take this m value, if you plug it in here, 20 over 3 divided by 2 is like 20 over 3 times 1 over 2, which would give you 20 over 6, which would simplify to 10 over 3. Right, so m equaling 20 over 3 is the answer for number 2. And then finally, number 3, we already have it in y equals mx plus b form here, which is nice. But we got to convert this to y equals mx plus b form. So the 3y is here. I'm going to bring everything else to the other side. So we'll have negative 6x minus m, like that. And then from here, we could divide everything by 3. So we'd end up with y equaling negative 6 divided by 3 is negative 2. And then we got minus m over 3, like that. And so if we compare it to this, notice the slopes are the same, which makes sense. So notice that the unknown now that we're solving for is going to be in the b value, right? The m is in the b value. The slopes are the same though, which makes sense. The lines are supposed to be equivalent. And so basically this 5 has to equal this negative m over 3. So let me erase this, give myself some room here. So basically 5 has to equal negative m over 3. You got to be careful with this negative over here. You got to include that, right? Because we have different signs. We have a positive 5 and negative m over 3. Both of those have to be the same. So 5 over 1, 5 times 3 is 15. 1 times negative m is negative m. Divide both sides by negative 1 to get the m by itself. So we end up with negative 15. For the m value. So that's the answer for number 3. And then you could check that here. So notice negative 15. The negative negative would turn into a positive. Then we'd have positive 15 over 3, which would give us positive 5. And then that would give us that right there. Right? So we could be pretty confident that that m value would make both of these lines equivalent.